From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. This is your weekly podcast about consumption and the original podcast about consumption. With me this week is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. His name is Sean. Sean, how are you doing today?
John, I've just got one question for you. Where do you go to bleed the old lizard?
I don't know, but I'm going to ask our guest that. We have a special guest this week. His name is Sam, and he is from the Feature Creatures DTF podcast. Sam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me, guys. How you doing?
Oh, we're all ripped up and torn down, and you know he's not in this movie, so we're not going to talk about that. So, like we mentioned, Sam is from the Feature Creatures DTF podcast. Before we get rolling, Sam, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Just a quick pitch for it. It's me and my friend Jordana, who's been on the show before. We basically talk mostly about movies, generally horror, but every now and then we'll throw in just like a general life episode too. So if you guys want to hear two more people talk about lots of bodily fun, we're very crass as well. But as we found out, that offends some people. But yeah, if you want to check that out, go check us out.
You guys need a word counter on how, or a like incident counter of how many times you bring up farting, because it's very common and I find it humorous as hell.
Yep. And the last two episodes in particular have been a little naughty, as they'll say. Yeah. And you were part of that, actually. You know, in a way, you were tangelically part of that.
I didn't even get to sit in on that. How did the dawn conversation go? Or did it even take place?
It went real weird. Because one person in the we did that as a live episode, and one person decided to take a real hard stance against it in a really strange way. But whatever.
So, Sean, you look confused. They did a live episode on Wednesday, Thursday, something like that this week, and they asked for topics to talk about. I suggested the topic, even though I knew I couldn't be on the episode to or in the live stream to watch them. Dongs in horror, ?
And if you're wondering,
sounds spirited.
The two hosts of the show were including myself, were very pro dong in horror.
Absolutely.
But not everyone is, apparently, and we caught some flack for it, but whatever.
There really isn't a whole lot of dong in horror. I mean, I can only think of a couple movies that the first one I think I ever saw was Scary Movie. I think has some dong, some hanging brain, right?
I found a pretty good list on Fangoria, just that was literally, I think it was featured like penis in horror movies or something like that. And I've not seen most of them, but I was like, well, these all look entertaining. Like one of them is literally like a silhouette, think of the Friday the 13th poster that's like the silhouette, but instead of the knife, there's just like a Ned Flanders dick hanging between this like silhouette's leg, like with a girl screaming behind it. I was like, well, that looks like a masterpiece.
If you find out what that is, send that my way.
I can get it because I sent the list to Jordana, so I'll send it to you after this.
Okay. I think the Friday the 13th 3 poster, instead of the knife going through the curtain, if a penis was just kind of like the tip was kind of sticking through the split of the curtain, perfect.
Chef's kiss.
Oh boy.
So as you can see, we're also pro dong in horror movies, so that's good.
On the right side of history.
Half of the world has one, right?
Right. Well, at least around there. So some of them get removed, some of them get put some other places, whatever. So as long as it's functional or not, I don't care.
You know, that's really what the horn was on a unicorn, just to make that clear.
That was a dick? Really?
Yeah, you said some people get them put other places. I just figured I'd chime that in.
Makes sense.
Not a doctor here, but or scientist.
I think it sounds scientific. I think we'll go with it.
So, speaking of scientists, I was watching something fun before we started here, and usually I'm not the one that kicks off what we were watching, but I'm going to this week because right before we came on this, I was watching an interview with Neil Patrick Harris. Wait, is that the right one? The physicist dude?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson and Neil Patrick Harris, same thing. Neil deGrasse Tyson was explaining aliens and humanoid aliens to Violent J of ICP, and I thought that was a interesting pairing. I'm not a fan of ICP, but I like watching him be confused by a scientist.
That sounds pretty wonderful to watch, actually.
I need to get through the other 15 minutes. I hope Violent J starts arguing with him or something, but right now he just looks clown-faced and confused.
Magnets, how do they work?
Right.
Fucking rainbows and shit. I'll actually say I'm not an ICP fan whatsoever, but
they suck.
They popped up on one of the podcasts that I really like called Your Mom's House, and it was one of them. And I was like shocked at how entertained I was by them just speaking. Like, I was like, this is what you should do. Your music is fucking awful. But like putting a microphone in front of you, you say some wild ass shit and it's very entertaining.
Yeah, they're like hyper local here. One of them like literally grew up basically near where Sean lives, like city wise, in like one town over from where I live as a kid. So they're about as local as it can be, like at least when I was growing up. And I fucking hated them then. I hate them now musically, but I managed to find humor when they pop up in things where they shouldn't. And I think it's extremely funny that they were, I don't know if they still are, but they were a Disney band, which is kind of humorous too. Their record label is owned by Disney for their first like 4 or 5 like big albums.
Wonderful.
ICP is so local here that I remember as a kid, there was a girl that lived down the street and it was like a rumor that she was dating one of them. That's how local they were. It's really funny how national they are.
My second girlfriend claimed that she was not Violent J, the other one. She claimed that he was her cousin. And I don't know if I believe it. Yeah, she put some guy on the phone that claimed he was him. But I was like, yeah, fucking right. Get out of here. I don't know if I believe you. And he claimed he was going to kill me on an album. I'm like, go the fuck ahead. Have fun with that. I never listened to the album to find out if it was true. That would have been a pretty good, I might have actually saved that song or something, bookmarked it.
It'd be like funny to find out like 10 years, 15 years after the fact. And you're like, oh, he named me in a song. Like, right. And then you have to rebuttal, 2 decades later.
Right. Sam, what have you been watching this week? Anything interesting?
As far as things are going, and I hate that it's going to sound like I'm like some super mega wrestling fan, which I sort of am, which is I think why I was brought on here. But I've been really watching that show Heels. I think that's a pretty entertaining show, if at all completely inaccurate in every single way possible. But I don't know. I quite enjoy it, even though Stephen Amell's kind of a scab, but whatever. I still enjoy the show.
That's been on my short list of shows to watch, and I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Season 1 is really, really fun. It's a little bit more like mom and pop stuff. And then season 2, they try to do like, if you at all are a wrestling fan, they kind of are trying to do like a Monday Night Wars kind of thing, but between like 2 companies that are as, the size of my living room, like it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's been on my short list to watch too. I got distracted by Winning Time, but I just became aware of that show maybe 2 months ago. So it's going to get watched sooner than later. So basically once Jerry Buss takes a break for a season.
I think you've only got an episode or 2 left.
One left.
Like that. Yeah. How about you, Sean? What have you been watching?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what sequence these episodes are going to go up, but I've been working really early and going to bed really early, so I really haven't watched much of anything. I fell into a YouTube rabbit hole watching interviews with Robert Smith of The Cure. I used to be a really big Cure fan, and I
fucking
fuck off.
Cure.
Fuck off, John. I used to really be into them.
Sean, I like The Cure.
And as of a couple years ago, it just kind of fell off. Like I haven't listened to them as much. You kind of start to, as you get older, you try to get into more music, but you seem to fall back on stuff. And The Cure is one that I like a lot of their hits, hits as far as their hits go. And I know a lot of their albums, but I don't know why. I found some YouTube video about Robert Smith, and then I started watching all these interviews with him from the early 80s. And so that's really all I watched. I watched the newest Winning Time, but that was like just yesterday.
So you don't like clowns, but you like Robert Smith? Because he's basically a clown.
He is not a clown.
He looks kind of clownish.
No, he does. He looks, it's funny when I watched some of these interviews, they're from the early 80s, right? He has a lot of hair. Some of them are pre the makeup kind of thing. And then I watched a couple interviews as of like 2020 or 2019 before they got inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I was like, time has not been kind to old Robert Smith.
No, it has not.
But he's still entertaining. Still a smart guy.
I love Robert Smith, but he does sort of look like a bomb pop that's melted now. Like
with hair.
Yes.
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
Not as much as it used to be. Right.
I'm all for like moody, grumpy music, but the whole like I'm English and sad, I just feel like he needs to go get some sun for an hour and he'd be fine. But no, he's British, so he makes songs about not crying. Fuck him. So,
I think he makes songs about crying too, though.
Yeah, exactly. Just no, I'm bad. Not into it. Yeah, the only thing I really would, I'm still watching through those Untold docuseries, and not a whole lot to say on that. But what I will say that was worth bringing up, and I hope becomes a reoccurring thing. So last night was again whenever this airs. Take that for what it's worth, or when this drops or releases, whatever. Last night was the season opener for Thursday Night Football, and the game was garbage. I don't even really care about that. But if you caught the pregame, what was really worth watching in this, we got to see Marshawn Lynch, Beast Mode himself, go on an excursion with some Amish people. And that was quite possibly the most entertaining thing I saw all. He's being taken to this like Amish farm in a buggy, and he's bitching to the Amish people that the buggy doesn't have a stereo system. Then he forces them to watch Weird Al Yankovic's music video for Amish Paradise. They continue to look confused. And then they try to get him to go milk a cow, but he refuses because he doesn't want to mess up his new Jordans that he's wearing. It's just everything top to bottom. I would watch an episode of Marshawn Lynch doing things every single fucking.
Was this like a scripted thing, or is this like, no, they just stuck Marshawn in a bunch of Amish, like an Amish caravan? Like what
I think they just stuck him in. It's like a 10-minute segment that was on before the game. I didn't get the impression it was scripted. I think they literally just said, we're going to send Marshawn to the Amish country for a day and bring a camera and see what happens. Like they have a solar powered light, and he starts claiming that they are hypocrites because that is a form of electricity. And they're like, but there's no wires. He goes, that's some bullshit. You're working around the system. That's what you're doing. So again, give me this as a series. I will watch. I feel like if it was a 30-minute episode, that'd probably get old, but you give me 10 minutes a week of Marshawn Lynch just doing shit, I'm all there for it.
That's like an Adult Swim time slot kind of show. 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, you could have him show up with Gronk once in a while and have him do jock dumb guy things and just be hysterical.
Dude, how many times did they show the new Exorcist trailer in that? I didn't watch the whole game, but I know that on Sunday, the week before, it was like constantly on. I just thought to myself, are all these football fans like huge Exorcist fans? And we just didn't know. That it was nuts how many times it was shown.
I don't remember seeing it at all last night. I still haven't seen it, which is good because I try to avoid it. I was watching Red Zone last week, so I didn't see any commercials until the late game. And by that point, I think I was high, so I don't really remember anything that I was watching. Last night, they kept playing Aquaman commercials. Apparently there's a new Aquaman.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember seeing The Exorcist at any point, which is, I'm slightly more interested in The Exorcist than Aquaman, but not by a whole ton.
I watched the regular Thursday night feed, and Sean, I agree. I saw quite a few. I mean, I went from never seeing the trailer to I saw the trailer like 9 times.
You were reciting it in your sleep by the time the game was over.
Well, as someone who, like, I fully just depleted on David Gordon Green. I know this isn't the horror podcast, but I'm like, fuck David Gordon Green. So yeah. I never saw the trailer, and then I saw it, and then it just progressively made me angrier and angrier. But like the adverse intention of what the commercial, every time it aired, I was just like, you motherfucker. You know, then I'm on like beer 4 by the end of the game, and I'm like, fuck David Gordon Green.
Negative hype. Negative hype achieved.
Yeah, the only thing that even makes me like moderately interested in watching that movie is Christopher Nelson still doing the effects, and I like him. But past that, I don't know. I didn't feel like we needed an Exorcist 2 or 3 or the entire like Exorcist world or spin-off world that came after it. So I don't feel like we need I don't know if this is a reboot, a requel, see, whatever the fuck they're doing. I don't feel like we need that either.
And you're going to get 3 of them.
But I'm also in the camp that's like, The Exorcist is good, but it's really more of a satanic comedy than it is a horror movie.
I think it's a fair take.
I think it all depends on how you saw it first. Like the first time I saw it, I was by myself and it was a little freaky, but then I saw it with friends and we just started laughing at everything. Like when you're a dumb kid and like you're watching someone like fuck themselves with a crucifix, you're like, okay, that's pretty funny. Like, it's definitely not scary.
So I had seen, I think, Scary Movie maybe before I saw The Exorcist. So in my mind, when I saw that scene for the first time, you know, I'm picturing James Woods and the demon chick just like, you know, like. So it didn't have the same effect on me as it maybe would some others.
Yeah, I don't know. My wife loves that movie. She watches it every year around this time of year. And every time she does, I'm like, I'm going to go watch Nail Gun Massacre in the basement or something because I don't want to need some quality entertainment, not this shit. Speaking of quality entertainment and dumb jocks, we have a topic this week, don't we, Sean?
We do have a topic.
We do have a topic. So this week we are talking about the movie No Holds Barred, which came out in 1989. Yes, 1989. It stars Hulk Hogan and it stars a bunch of other fuckers. But we always start with a third-party review. So we'll go in with that, and then we'll tell you a little bit more about the movie. This review, I'm really only reading because it's written in the best fucking way possible. I don't agree with it. It's anonymous. It's 1 out of 5 stars off of Rotten Tomatoes. Brother, this vile pile driver of Dookie somehow makes Hulk Hogan's sex tape seem like more coherent and less disgusting vanity project. Canonical scale 5 out of 5 on strength. Kurt Fuller's nastily chewing through it, the scenery alone. That's literally how that's written.
No punctuation at all.
No, just big run on. Yeah. Hey.
And the first score he gives is a 5 out of 5, but then the movie gets a 1 out of 5. It's an interesting scale.
It might be a recurring theme. So,
did you say vile pile driver?
Yes, brother, this vile pile driver of Dookie.
I like that.
So, yes,
I like that. That's real good.
Sean, you want to tell us about this movie?
I mean, I guess we're gonna go with the IMDb plot and the storyline, but I'll read the plot first, which I think this is a good summation, but I do think it kind of undersells it. A TV network boss pits a wrestler called Zeus against a wrestler called Rip in a wrestling match. I mean, that's pretty dead on, but
I mean, it's already slightly inaccurate, but yes.
True. Yeah. So we'll go with the storyline here. It says, and this is, of course, from imdb.com. It says, Rip is the World Wrestling Federation champion who is faithful to his fans and the network he wrestles for. Brell, the new head of the World Television Network, wants Rip to wrestle for his network. Rip refuses and goes back to his normal life. Still looking for a way to raise ratings, Brell initiates a show called The Battle of the Tough Guys, a violent brawling competition. A mysterious man, Zeus, wins the competition. This gets Brell to use him as an angle to get at Rip. So much to unpack there.
So, Sam, when we bring guests on, I try to find something that's going to be fun for them to talk about. And I remember you talking about this on your show with Jordana. I forget. I think you mentioned it as a comfort movie, if I remember right.
I fucking love this movie. I don't. you guys can shit all over it, and it is terrible. But I love this goddamn movie.
You're in good company. Do you want to kick us off? Do you have anything you want to start on how we feel about this movie?
Like what? Like, do I give it its praise? Do I give it its flowers? Do I ask you questions? I'm not really sure, because it's also a movie that I've seen now, I don't know how many times, and yet every time I'm like, there's another question that that's arisen, just as a one that kind of hit me today. I'm like, I was watching it today and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, do we care about spoilers or anything like that? Or
no, this is an old fucking movie. Swallow away.
Like, the whole premise of the whole crux of the movie is that Kurt Fuller, who is fucking awesome in this movie, I genuinely think he is, for this type of over the top 80s villain, he's wonderful. But his whole drive in this fucking fairy tale is that he wants Hulk Hogan on his network. So then he finally gets Hulk Hogan on his network and then proceeds to pull the electrical cords until he kills himself. So like, he gets what he wants finally, and then is like, I don't want it, and then just takes himself out. I don't understand it.
I rarely do this, but I'm going to say, again, super spoiler alert, this movie's like over 30 years old. Almost, yeah, it's like 35 years old, whatever, almost 35 years old. I have never seen a movie where it's clearly geared towards young adults, adolescents, no offense, people like almost subhuman intelligence. This thing is written.
This is a PG-13 movie. I mean, you're absolutely right. It is geared towards a younger audience.
And somehow, at the end of the movie, a guy gets electrocuted, dies. Another guy gets thrown through, not thrown on, thrown through a wrestling ring, and the crowd cheers. Like, these guys are dead. Rip is awesome. Yeah. It's like, that's lunacy. It's straight lunacy.
Oh, that got me so good.
This movie does really kind of make murder seem like a real trivial thing, because it happens several times throughout this, and they're just like, it's on TV. So
it not only does it make murder a trivial thing, I mean, again, and like you said, this is a movie that's definitely geared for kids. It's also weirdly super horny. And then there's a scene where, as a punishment for not getting Hulk Hogan on the network, Brell, the villain, sends a man to go rape a woman. It's like, this is in a kid's movie? How is this possible?
And it leads to the most incomprehensible motorcycle chase scene that I've ever seen in my life. One, the fact that this would-be rapist is able to make gain distance from a motorcycle that's chasing him is weird enough, but I'm no physicist, but I think if you run into a human being on a motorcycle, you're just as screwed up as the person that you hit. I don't think motorcycles are made to hit things in general.
I think that would probably be a fair assessment.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I've ever ridden on a motorcycle, let alone hit anyone or anything on a motorcycle.
There is this scene that happens. Joan Severance is in this movie. She's like a main character, and Brel sends this guy, like Sam said, to rape her, basically to punish Rip, aka Hulk Hogan. The thing that I was amazed about, and I love that we can have all these different takes on this movie because it's just so ridiculous. There's so many things that happen. I was amazed that Hulk Hogan does the stunts. He rides the motorcycle. Like Vince McMahon owns Hulk Hogan's soul at this point, and he allows him to star in a movie that he executive produces where Hulk Hogan hits a guy on a bike. He literally hit the guy, and he lets the guy ride where Hulk Hogan's, he's revving the motorcycle, driving the motorcycle, piloting it, whatever. And the guy's sitting on the front. This whole thing happens. It's not a stunt double. It's literally Hulk Hogan. He must have so much experience riding a motorcycle to be able to do this flawlessly, or they did multiple takes and they had different actors that played this guy, and other ones died and we just never heard about them.
I mean, it's not like you can get a body double for Hulk. I mean,
right.
it's kind of gotta be him, or a bear that you shave down,
or you don't shoot him from the front at all.
Yeah.
You don't show his face, but they show his face multiple times.
Yeah, it's we're all over the place already, but I mean, this movie is just from start to finish, it is one of the most amazing polished turds that I've ever seen put to film. That's the best way that I can really put it. Right off the bat, you get some of the best, absolute A+, horrible 80s written for this movie music. The No Holds Barred theme, which we're going to have to find and drop somewhere.
Jim Johnston's, he's so upset. He wrote all the classic wrestling themes, and he did do the music for this movie, but it's wonderfully terrible.
Oh, yeah. But it's also so perfect for this time in film. And there's so many little breaks to these weird little musical segues where it's just oozes it just almost feels like 1985 or earlier, but it's 4 years after the fact. I like that Hulk Hogan or Rip or whatever he is, he's always in wrestling gear, and he's always wearing a wrestling belt through this entire, whenever he's not in a ring or not on camera, he's still wearing the spandex, the the Ninja Turtle bandana thing, again, the lifting belt, the whole ensemble 24/7, except for when he's doing push-ups in his underwear in the moon. So
if he's not wearing a wrestling belt, it is stitched into his clothes, because there's one outfit that he wears a couple times where he doesn't actually have the belt on, but it looks like whatever the pattern is, there is a wrestling belt shaped area on his, or a lifting belt or whatever shaped area on his clothes at all times.
It looks as if you put a belt up, it would magnetize to his clothes.
Yeah, it was probably woven, there's cross weaves and shit.
Can I start with a question here?
Please.
Well, first of all, you brought up, how disjointed we already are because the movie's so all over the place. Now, the story I've always heard, giant wrestling nerd here, but the story I've always heard is that a real actual writer wrote this script, and then Hulk and Vince read it and were like, this sucks, you don't understand wrestling, and then they went into a hotel room for 48 hours, God knows what they were doing in there, and then they came out with this script. So this was what Vince and Hulk wanted. That's what I've always heard. So you can thank both Vince and Hulk for the lovely continuity here. And then the other thing I just want to know is, why did they not just choose to call him Hulk Hogan? It's not like he's not playing Hulk. He's doing everything that Hulk does. He's dressing just like Hulk did. And they're like, no, you're Rip. What? I don't know.
Well, additionally with that,
the thing that's crazy is that he is Rip, the WWF champion. They don't even change the name of the wrestling, and he's fighting Axe from Demolition at the beginning, the first match.
Yeah, the Bill Eadie.
I'm a
super nerd.
Over the top.
Piggyback on all that, though, they did a Hell in the Cell where Hulk Hogan fights Zeus because Zeus is pissed off that he lost in the movie or whatever. So again, to your point, why not just call him Hulk Hogan if you're going to bring it into WWE lore? to be, or maybe it was still WWF at that point.
It would have been F. Yeah, it was right. It coincided with the movie that they then like released it, and then they did 2 matches where they brought Zeus in to fight Hulk. But then you're like, well, wait, that doesn't make it. Then again, why wouldn't he have just been fucking Hulk in the movie? Like, having him be Rip makes no sense whatsoever. Not that the rest of the movie does either.
It's that carny nature of wrestling mixed with Hollywood and Tiny Lister. Like, if you saw the movie, you know he's an actor. I mean, he's obviously very, he's very big and
huge.
He's just a big dude.
But
you know he's an
amazing
actor.
unibrow that's ever been unibrowed.
Yeah, and I can't remember when he wrestled, if they said his origin. They used to back in the day when they would introduce a wrestler, so Kamala from Parts Unknown or whatever. I don't know if they ever had like a origin for him, but he's clearly an actor. This may have been his first role, but Tiny Lister's an actor at this point. So Everybody knows if they see the movie, he's got a credit of his real name. He's not really Zeus. So that whole thing, blending reality and Hollywood and the carny nature of wrestling, was just so interesting back when this actually came out.
By the way, Sean, if you didn't know, Hulk Hogan's real name isn't Hulk Hogan.
What?
Oh,
you're joking. Mind blown.
Something or other. That's how bad it is. I don't even remember his last name. So
I love that Sam and I this whole episode are probably going to be like saying things at the exact same time about people's names and all this weird wrestling stuff.
Sean, so I got a question, since you know wrestling stuff clearly.
Yeah.
Here's the question I have, just rewatching it again today. I'm like, why are there so few wrestlers in the movie? Like, as far as I could count, I think that there's 2 besides Hulk. There's Bill Eadie, who plays Bullet whatever in the opening fight, and then Stan Hansen, who I just fucking love, and he's great in this movie, plays the crazy hillbilly who looks at the executives' teeny weenies. And other than that, it's just like generic big guys. And I'm like, you had all the wrestlers. Like, you telling me you couldn't have just hired one of them? And they probably would have had better fights than these actors would have, but whatever.
You can't tell me that dropping Jake the Snake or Macho Man or even Ted DiBiase as Keith Fuller's role or something like that wouldn't have been equally, if not more, entertaining.
I just feel like one of those big guys that were in Battle of the Tough Guys, best named event. There should really be a wrestling pay-per-view called Battle of the Tough Guys.
They own the rights to WrestleMania, and they're like Battle of the Tough Guys.
One of those guys has to be at least a jobber of some sort, right? I mean, some of those guys are real big.
I would have to assume that maybe they were jobbers or unknowns. But like, even when I was trying to research this for this episode, and I was like, I can't come up with any of them. One of them looked kind of familiar. There's like a bald one who gets his ass kicked in 5 seconds. But other than that, I was like, I've been watching wrestling for almost since this movie's been out. I'm 34, so I'm like 1 year younger than this movie. And I'm like, I see 2 people that I recognize outside of Hulk.
Yeah, it's a really underutilized resource that they had there. I mean, they had everybody, like you said, at their fingertips that they could have used. And there were tons of superstars that probably would have killed to be just cameos to make, I don't know, some kind of
stage minimum or whatever,
royalty or whatever from the Screen Actors Guild or something,
Well, they all think that they're going to be the next fucking, big actor in Hollywood, and this will be their starting point, but not for anybody but Hulk. And well, that's kind of a big thing in his career. Not for anybody but Hulk. That just sums up his career.
Creative control.
Yeah.
So I have a question. We're kind of doing questions. Kurt Fuller plays this TV executive. He runs this whole network or cable TV or whatever. His singular focus is this wrestling thing, right? He needs to have Rip on his network. He seemingly has no wrestling content on his network, but he wants Rip for it. Who do you think was the inspiration of that character? I have a couple ideas, but I'm just curious what you guys think.
If Vince wrote it, it's Ted Turner. There's no way. But in 89, it probably would have been Ted.
I was thinking Ted Turner, but mixed maybe a little bit with Donald Trump at the time. Like, they kind of have that same bombastic attitude, especially at the very beginning when he tries to really sweet talk Rip into coming onto his network. But as the movie kind of progressed, I felt like it was a little bit more of Ted Turner. Like, it clearly becomes Ted Turner at some point, but I just felt at the beginning it was a little bit more, I don't know, they were trying to be a little bit more veiled about it. I just thought it was outrageous that this guy has this whole network and he's just the woman proposes a sitcom and all this stuff, and he's like, no, we've got to have wrestling, we've got to have people beating each other up. It's like, dude, there's more than just one show on that makes your channel. Has to be.
Not on the World Television Network. That's not how it works.
Yeah, greatly named. Everything in this, everything that has a name in this movie is just the most like generic, bland. You know, if there was a beer in this movie, it would have just been called like beer. Like that's
Actually, I have a note about that. There is a beer in this movie, and it's called Stroh's, and I was pretty happy to see that. Ooh. I was like, oh, product placement straight from Detroit. That's fun. So as long as we're going with questions, so I have a question. There's a scene in the middle of this movie where Hulk and What's-Her-Face are at a diner, and a robbery takes place at the diner. The guy goes and gets into the cash register, and Hulk Hogan proceeds to beat the ever-living fuck out of this guy while destroying the restaurant. Yes. How much money do you think was in that bag for the robbery that he stopped, as opposed to how much money do you think he racked up in damages to the restaurant? Yet they hail him as a hero at the end of him whooping the shit out of this guy.
In pies alone, that they lost more than that they gained from him getting the money back.
I mean, it's entertaining. You want to see the bad guy get the crap beat out of him, but as you're watching, I'm like, man, if I owned this diner, I'd be like, both of you get the fuck out of here, please. Like, take the register. Just stop destroying my building.
I love in the scene that he's heralded as this hero, and he telegraphs everything. He's like, hey, everybody get down. And they have guns. It's not like they just have like a plate or something they're going to throw at him.
I noticed when he throws, like at one point, he grabs him kind of by the scruff and like throws him down the bar. And he, of course, slides down the bar comically. You might as well have like a banana slip sound in there. That's how like goofy this scene is. The gun is in his hand the entire time. Like he's essentially thrown through like 2 or 3 walls and across a bar. Never drops the pistol once, but also only fires directly up into the ceiling one time, and it sounds like a cap gun.
I have a question about your question about this scene.
Inception.
I'm getting deep here. Where and why were they there? This scene in this movie, literally, they're like, we're getting on a flight. We gotta go to the thing. And they seem like they fly, the way it's edited, to go eat at this restaurant. That he then saves from the diner and then, or saves from the robbery, and then just cuts back. No, he's back in LA or wherever the fuck they are. Like the entire purpose of this is just, they were like, well, we want to have a pie fight. Like, and this is how we're going to do it.
Well, to set it up though, they do go to that fancy French restaurant, right? Where Joan Severance takes Hulk to it, and they play it up like he's this big meatball and he's not going to know how to order anything, or you want the hamburger, you know, or all that stupid
hot dog de foot.
Yeah, all that cliche, like American idiot stuff. But then he orders, of course, Hulk Hogan. That was flawless French. And he orders this gourmet meal. And then I thought the next day it was like, well, how about I take you to someplace that I like, as like I don't know if it was a date so much. But yeah, they like fly to go to this restaurant, like you said, to have a pie fight. And then they're just back. Like that was great. Hulk Hogan's a man of the people here. Oh, I'm sorry, Rip Thomas or whatever his name is.
I love that the whole place that he's going to impress this woman, because you're right, it plays like he's trying to woo her more or less. It's like this little shack diner,
dirty silverware.
In the middle of like Kentucky somewhere or something like that. So,
we almost skipped over one of my favorite lines in the movie, and I would be remiss if we did. When you were referencing Kurt Fuller being the Ted Turner evil villain, I think like this line deserves an award. But when he's like having his executives like pitch him other shows, and this woman goes, I was thinking maybe we could have like a high concept sitcom, and he goes, go take a leak. And then she starts crying, and I guess that's his way of firing her. But I'm like, that's amazing.
My dream. I thought you were going to bring up that I'd be remiss to not to mention this. What's that smell?
Oh, we're getting, I like, we have to get to that scene. It's the best scene in the movie.
I think it's the scene that most people know. I think it's the only reason that people know this movie is because, I mean, one, that scene really emphasizes Hulk Hogan's like poked out facial. Like Hulk Hogan's face in this entire movie is a mix of like, I'm on drugs and I'm orgasming, but at the same time in pretty much every scene. And that scene really like sells it more than any other. But that scene also turns Hulk Hogan into the Incredible Hulk for about 10 minutes.
Set it up for us, John. Why don't you tell us about this scene?
Basically, whatever his name, Fuller's cronies are trying to get Hulk to like get on his cable network. So they lock him in a limo and they're going to try to force his hand or whatever. Hogan gets pissed and goes all Hogan smash and starts kicking the side of the door and denting the shit out of it, which somehow causes the drivetrain to go all over the place and the driver to lose control of the car. I'm not exactly sure how that happens. I guess because he's so strong. Eventually,
the force of the kicks,
but not near where the car steers. So that's cool.
The force of the kicks were so strong that it pushed the car into other lanes of traffic. The guy couldn't even control it. I mean, he has the atomic leg drop.
The car that he's pushing also seems to be some sort of murder vehicle, because I don't know many limos that have like metal plating that just like covers all exit points.
It encases the passengers. Everybody besides the driver gets encased in steel.
So eventually the car veers into, I think it's in like a parking garage or something like that, if I'm remembering right. And Hulk Hogan pulls a Jack in the Box move and literally explodes out of the top of this limousine that we've already mentioned is encased in some kind of bulletproof steel. He explodes out, looks like he's doing the superhero landing, but in reverse from any comic book movie. Proceeds to rip the doors off of said limousine, beat the shit out of anyone that's moving around him, and force the limo driver to shit his pants. And then we get to the classic line where Hogan asks, "What's that smell?" And a very scared, frightened limo driver says, "Dookie."
Dookie.
That character's name in the credits, I believe, is the limo driver's actual name in the movie is Dookie.
Is it? That's a good touch.
Oh, so we've seen you play Dookie before? All right. So thanks for coming in.
Is that listed in here?
I would never sit and watch this movie in the theater. I mean, like as a kid when it came out, but
if I had
now
the option, I would go right now.
Watching this scene, I would watch this. I would pay 100 times just to go until that scene plays and then leave and wait in the theater till the next showtime, just so I could see that guy say Dookie again.
Dookie. Oh, the whole thing is the way Hulk, like you said, is his facial expressions are just great. But anyone who is a wrestler in this, by the way, the word wrestler, just like in WWE, never said in this fucking movie. But anyone who is a sports entertainer in this movie mostly communicates through barbaric grunts and growls. And in that scene, it's just when he's holding him and he's just like as if he's like a pig and he's snorting out a truffle. Like it's amazing. And then, by the way, the diarrhea goes like all the way up to his shoulder blades. I don't know about you, what kind of diarrhea this man has had, but it is catastrophic.
My kids have had a few up the backs in their day.
Oh, well, the key word there is kids, not adult males being roughed up by Rip'em or whatever.
Don't you know this guy is Dookie? That's what he's known for.
Clearly.
He goes to parties.
I guess that's how you get the name.
Dookie, do your thing. And he's like, and he just goes up his back.
Oh, that's amazing.
I did want to mention the dialogue since you brought it up. I really like Zeus's dialogue that is essentially just grunts and screaming.
Screams.
Until the very end of the movie when he's got Hulk Hogan in a chokehold and he just starts screeching for no apparent reason. I never quite got that.
I think he only says one word in the whole movie, if I'm correct. I believe the only word he says...
He does say a few. Yeah, because...
I know he says... when they ask him what his name is, but I couldn't remember if he ever does call out Rip or not.
When he's on TV, he says... He's got like a 3-word sentence, but it's like... Challenge. You might as well start screaming Kalema.
This movie made me really not like Tiny Lister, Tommy Tiny Lister, for the rest of his career, because he's not really menacing. He's just like annoying because he screams the whole time. He just like somebody whose skin has been lit on fire or something, and they're just like they can't communicate because the only thing they feel is pain, you know. And he has his arms like he's all stiff and shit, and that lasted in my mind until when I saw him in Matlock. He was in Matlock. He was like Matlock's, I don't know, bodyguard or some shit for a couple episodes. And then being in Friday, I was just like, I can't. This guy is not somebody who I ever want to see in a movie again because of his performance in this. And not that anybody else would have done any better with what they were given. Just that like the cross-eye thing, the Z in his head, when he was the actual wrestler and all he did was scream and barely did any kind of promo stuff. Like, I'm good. I
do like his Oakland Raiders shoulder pads, though. Those are pretty rad.
The only wrestler to wrestle with all like metallic knee pads, I think. I mean, don't quote me on that, but that seems very...
I can't think of it.
I mean, they made the Legion of Doom take off their shoulder pads, but Zeus is okay, I guess. What am I forgetting here? Like, what else do we have to say about this beautiful disaster?
How much of this movie is dubbed? The first 10 minutes are all like Hulk Hogan doesn't actually, he moves his mouth, but it's not what he's saying at the time. It's dubbed in, obviously, after the fact. There's, I think, a lot of the scenes, the wrestling or the fighting kind of scenes, nobody's actually saying, their mouths aren't moving to what they're actually saying. I just found that it's almost
ADR.
It's almost like if you ever watch, I don't know, well, even Asian action movies that they've adapted for US audiences or whatever, where they just dub over everybody. It was almost to that point, but they're speaking the native language, but they dub it over. And there's a lot and it seems like a lot of it, Hulk Hogan, this is his first real starring thing. I think the only thing he had been in prior to this was when he was in Rocky 2.
3.
Was it 3?
Yeah.
And it almost seems like the way that he delivers his lines, I mean, he's never been a top-notch actor, but he definitely, if you watch some of his later stuff, he gets better. But this is almost like he's being fed the lines as he says them. That's how bad it is.
Like phonetically saying them.
Right.
I have a new question, Sean.
Yes.
How the fuck do you define top-notch actor?
Santa with muscles.
Yeah. Suburban Commando.
Oh, I was thinking of Santa's Sleigh, but that works too.
Santa with Muscles is the best Hulk Hogan movie I've ever seen, and I've seen 2 Hulk Hogan movies.
Oh, Mr.
You've
Nanny, come on. We can go on.
You've redeemed yourself. Okay. It makes sense now. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add at this point. I do want to say I think it's incredibly funny that they managed to give Hulk Hogan a brother, because of course they fucking did. It's Hulk Hogan. He has to have someone to call brother, right?
Jacob from Lost is his brother.
Yeah, clearly the most obviously biological related pair of human beings on the planet.
It's almost twins.
Clearly.
Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger twins, just for clarification.
I think it's very funny as again, if you have, for the listeners, if you have a wrestling knowledge, most people know or think this about Hulk, that he's kind of a piece of shit. I mean, I like him, because I was a kid, but he's a piece of shit. I like
him, but he's a piece of shit.
Piece of shit, he is. I
like Danzig. He's a piece of shit too. So,
but the way he wrote himself to be in this movie, I care about my charities, but he very much sounds like one of I used to have a Hulk Hogan beat 'em up buddy, and you would bend its arm and it would say you're breaking my arm, brother. It's a lot of dialogue sounds like that, but he's I care about my charities, brother, and I care about my disabled brother now, brother. The way he brother, but he very much wrote himself to be the amazingly over the top, super nice, awesome guy, and then in reality, we've just heard all these stories. He's just full of shit constantly. He lied very recently and said that Metallica asked him to be their bassist. He also said,
what?
Very recently. He's going crazy. He also said he wrestled 400 out of 365 days one year, because if you wrestle in Japan and go around the earth, then it fucks with the time, and it's insane.
You're in yesterday.
But he very much thinks that he is he wants to be this super nice, awesome character. And it's it took 35 years, but then John Cena came out, and now John Cena has the all-time record for most Make-A-Wishes granted. He actually does do all this shit with kids, never had a scandal, definitely never had a sex tape or got caught saying the N-word. It's John Cena became what I think Hulk wanted to be, and I just think that's a very interesting thing to look at when you watch this movie. Also the jacking off push-ups.
I mean, this movie did launch the whole WWE movie sector of their entertainment empire, so it's got that going for it. I mean, this movie fell on its face so that The Rock and John Cena and those could run, I guess. But I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to add at this point. I mean, there's one other thing, but I'm going to save it for my Jerry Springer final thought. I mean, you guys got anything else you want to touch on before we start wrapping on this?
I have to say, Rip has the worst finisher of any wrestler ever. It's a running double axe handle. Yeah, that's awful. What the fuck is that? That's not even a move. That's
it would have been better if they had him do the boot to the face. At least that looks more uncomfortable.
He has the boot and the atomic leg drop as a wrestler, but he has a double
he's
axe
not
handle.
Hulk Hogan. He doesn't have the.
That's
atomic
true.
leg
He's
drop.
Rip. He's the WWE champion, Rip. And his brother gets paralyzed or something. I don't know, from just getting kind of kicked a few times and choked.
Yeah, but he's also standing at the end of the movie, so he's healed by getting like thrown across a wrestling ring or something.
He twitches his finger, and that fires Rip's no-cell of all his, the Hulk Hogan head shake thing, the head shake of doom and all that.
You're all better now, brother. You can get up and walk again.
I remember watching the movie the first time several years ago, and I know obviously it didn't happen, but I felt like the thing that his brother gets put through, like the actual beat down that he gets, was a lot worse. And when I watched it this time, I was like, I mean, he gets beat up and he gets like, he gets a hand around his neck, but he's kind of ducking under and bobbing and weaving and all this. And it was a lot less bad than I remember it being for some reason. I thought it happened a lot earlier too, but it's not that severe.
And which is crazy because like a very common storyline back in those days would be like someone would get pile driven like on the cement or something. And it's like, you could have just did that. The woman that Zeus basketball palms her face and picks her up with one hand and then drops her in a barrel is, I think, more violent than what happens to his brother. So
slightly.
Sam, you are totally changing my mind on this movie. I'm not going to give it a great score, but you're talking me into rethinking that whole thing. I swear.
I'm glad because it's wonderful. And I think you should see his entire filmography.
Oh, we can make that happen eventually.
There's no months that start with H, unfortunately. It could be like Hulk Hogan December.
On my old show before it disintegrated, we had pitched on his birthday month. We were going to do all of it leading up to this movie because this is his penultimate movie. This is everything else went through somebody else's filter. This went through his and Vince's filter. So like this is his movie. We've
pitched doing Wrestler Mania several times where we just do a month of all shitty wrestler movies. And I don't know why we haven't done that yet.
There's no shortage.
Exactly.
One or two.
All right. Do we want to wrap up here or we start moving on? Are you ready for hot dogs or?
I think Sam should go first. He's the guest.
Okay. So Sam, feel free to kick us off if you're so inclined. Let us know your final thoughts on this movie. And if you want to give it a score, feel free to. You don't have to use hot dogs, but we appreciate it if you do.
All right. I'm just going to say that this movie's wonderful, especially if you're a wrestling fan. Even if you're not and you just like crazy, dumb movies, I think that there is fun to be had with this movie. I watch it at least once a year. After this, I might watch it again. Who knows, tonight or Santa with Muscles. I think it is a super fun movie. I don't know. I guess I think if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. It's $2 right now. You can rent it on Amazon or you can buy 75 Blu-rays of it and let's get a sequel made. 5 hot dogs. 5 out of 5 hot dogs. I love it.
I was going to say 5 out of what? 5 out of 10,000 hot dogs.
But yeah, 5. Okay, 5 out of 5 hot dogs. And actually, let me rephrase that. As the asshole in this movie says, 5 out of 5 hot dog de foot.
You want me to go, Sean, or you want to go?
I'll go. I apologize to Sam in advance. Let me preface this by saying this movie is insane. It is very fun. But as far as the movie goes, I have to ask, who is this movie for? This is Hulk Hogan's first starring role. They're if you can't see it, both the other people on this podcast are pointing at themselves. This is Hulk Hogan's first starring role, very clearly going for the adolescent boy audience. I feel like as a movie, like as a real quote unquote film, the writing is an affront to human intelligence. The acting's terrible. Hulk Hogan, as I mentioned before, acts like his lines are being fed to him one by one. And we already know this, but who thought this was a good idea? The payoff of the movie is a bad guy is dead and the other one's probably dead too. And the crowd cheers. I gotta say, I cheered when the movie was over. I gave it 3 red bikini briefs out of 11 hot dogs. But I love it. I love it at the same time.
Everything Sean just said, I agree with, but in a good way. This movie is a goddamn masterpiece. Everything about this movie from start to finish is just utter schlock cheese and just ridiculous steroid and cocaine-induced madness. I fucking love it. It's stupid. It's entertaining. It's perfect to like get inebriated with and just enjoy because it's not worth overthinking. Is it good? No. Is it fantastic? Absolutely. This is the movie that should have won every Oscar every year in perpetuity from 1989 forward. I give it 7 shitty like extras thrown by Zeus at Hulk Hogan out of 10 hot dogs. Yes, Zeus actually throws a human being at another human being as a defense mechanism. I think that's great.
Bonus question. What is your favorite song on the soundtrack?
The title track or whatever, the one that I don't know the names of the song, so I can't go with that. The one where he screams "No Holds Barred" like 30 times.
That's the name of the song, so you win.
I was gonna pick the saxophone sexy music that he's playing when he's wearing the underwear that's up his butthole and while he's doing push-ups.
My favorite is "Hey Pumpkinhead." Just ridiculous. All the songs on this. When the credits roll at the end and they show the songs, I was like, there are 6 songs in this movie. There are 6 credited songs in this movie, and like 5 of them are by the same person, and then like Hank Williams Jr. or something did the other one, the All My Rowdy Friends or whatever they used for Monday Night Football afterwards.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for him to say something about football, and that when that came on, I'm like, oh, this must be the B-side version of this song or whatever. So that's it. We've talked about this movie. Now we're going to ask you, the maybe paying attention, maybe not, the audience that chooses to respond to this shit. Our question of the week this week is pretty simple. Hulk Hogan comes up to you and asks, "What's that smell?" How do you answer Mr. Hogan or Rip? So we will start with Threads because we only got one response there, and that it came from, I don't even know how the fuck to say this. You Ben Avitas. Okay. He simply says Dookie with some happy faces. So he gave a correct answer. That's good, but
a correct answer.
Well, it's accurate, I suppose. We didn't get any response on Instagram, so fuck that. And then on Twitter or X, whatever it is, our friends over at Dissect That Film, they have another great podcast, which you can absolutely go follow. They simply responded with a question and said, "Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?" Which is fair.
Pretty good.
And then Boomer over at Podcast in the Woods simply said, "What you smell is the shame of this dog shit Saw franchise long overstaying its welcome and putting another film out this year."
I feel like there's some spin on that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel like
it.
I feel like the answer to that question was just, can we talk about Saw?
I like the random animosity with it. So, Sean, do you have an answer for this one?
I did, but I don't think I have it anymore. Come back to me.
My answer for this question is pretty simple. It's not Dookie. It's simply the remnants of Taco Bell from days gone by.
Nice.
Sam, do you have an answer for this stupid question?
If Hulk honestly came up to me and said this question, I'm not the biggest Hulk fan in real life. Like, I mean, I like his stuff, but I don't know why. The first thing that came to my head when you said it was, I'd be like, "That's Poonanny, brother." And I don't know why. I don't even say that word.
Oh, perfect.
This movie
Sean,
is
did you figure it out yet?
broken.
Where can I rent Paranormal Highway? That doesn't go, but that's all I got.
This question failed miserably, so we'll try this again next week.
Right.
If you would like to answer a question of the week, you can do that by following us on all the social media stuff. We are at Dewey Pod Monster all over the place. You can also listen to our show on any podcast and streaming outlet, and occasionally we pop up on YouTube as well. More importantly, you should definitely check out Sam's work and Sam's projects. Sam, tell everyone where we'll plug everything you want to plug. Plug your plugs. Where can we find you?
You can find Feature Creatures DTF on any podcast platform, and you can find us primarily on Instagram as well. DTF doesn't mean it's a horny podcast. It is a anagram, I guess we'll call it. It's drinks, tangents, and flicks. That's what we like to talk about. So go check it out if you like that and liked any of the stupid, crazy bullshit I said tonight.
Sean, how about you? Where can people find you outside of this jalopy of a show?
Well, I was just going to say, if you want your answer to the question of the week and the answer of the week of the question, respond to us on all the social media at Dewey Pod Monster, right? Dewey Pod. Respond to us at Dewey Pod Monster on all social media networks. If you want to look at my Michigan beer, Bravels, travails, etc., you can find me at youtube.drafttherapy.com or on all the social media networks at Draft Therapy.
So that's it. That's all we got for this week. Again, Thank you, Sam, for coming on. It's always a blast when we get to chat with you. Absolutely appreciate it. If you are listening, please check out Feature Creatures DTF. It's a great show, one of my favorites. So, and that clearly is the barometer, as if it's one of my favorites, because I love this movie and I love their show. Anyway, we'll be back next week with some more bullshit. Have a good one.